And we are back. Thank you for keeping it Hope TV and live chat. Now, before we went on the break, I really liked how we started with the introduction of understanding the importance of the role of a father in the life of a child. And we dealt with the importance, especially to our son. Now, there was something that, Michael, you finished and you said, something to do with the fact that your generation experienced issues because at that point you never really had a close connection with your fathers as much. So, because maybe the families were so big, and so there wasn't really that personal touch of a father in your life. At some point, does it manifest in your life now as a father? And this goes generally, broadly speaking, in your generation. Do you think that there were some things that your fathers did or did not do then that right now have some sort of negative impact that you have seen in your parenting as a father?
Yeah, at some point, I'd say it did. Yeah, and at that particular time, as we were growing up, we were forced to begin on how to start finding identity of yourself. You see, as a man, as you grow up, basically things keep on developing, and you start looking at your backfalls. Where did you go wrong, and what really happened? And I would not say that my father was not there; he was there, but because of I think of a bigger family and giving attention to all of us became difficult. And my firstborn brothers got the wrath, and we slightly got shielded, but we didn't get that clear attention. And later on in life is when we began to get the clear attention. Now when you're growing up, and you're also able to sit with your father on the table and discuss, and he begins to see each and every person of his children as an individual who was grown up and who was actually getting identity of himself in terms of what you do, how you do. And that's when they realize, oh, okay, fine. Maybe I was also ash to these guys. And at a point where I began to see the identity of myself and get to know this is me and this is what I need to do to actually come out to be a stronger person as a young man growing, and like when I'm still under the roof of my father, it changed a lot. And I've also seen that happening in day to day's life. There are times you realize you have fathers who tend to back off their families. And sorry to bring this again, fathers who are not so much in Christ. I'm not saying that they're bad, but at times the time we waste out there. Before I got born again, I was also out there, you know. And most of us has part that life. And you realize the time you waste out there, you leave your workplace, you go meet John, you sit, have one or two. Before long, it's late. You go back home. You have very limited time with your children, and more so the men, the male factor. You get the point? And in that vacuum, you realize that your sons began to draw nearer and closer to the mother. They begin to start reasoning like the mother. Why? Because that father figure aspect is not within the house. But I thank God when we begin to realize that this is what is lacking, you start thumping authority. Like I said, at some point, there was a disconnect between me and my firstborn because I was not there. Yes, I'd come home, be there, we'd go to church, everything. But at some point, I didn't give that full attention. At times, full attention, I mean that you don't go to work. But when you come back home, what do you talk about with your son? Do you just go, sit, watch TV? Or do you sit once in a while and just say, hey, boy, sit down. How are you doing? How is your life? How is school? And that's the thing that most of us fathers have lacked. And that's the thing that we're also fighting with. And that's why I realize our generation of young boys nowadays are losing out because they don't have that clear attraction with their fathers.
I like that, and we will get to that when we talk about how those father wounds manifest now in what you see in our generation right now. But before we get to that, I'd like to hear from I'd like to hear from you, Anthony.
Right. On retrospect, My dad did a pretty good job. The only father wound I can say that I carried was two things that really hurt me. First, I'm artistic, so I love music. I've always loved music. And I remember at one time, one of my neighbors, I had an older neighbor who was a friend, and he gave me his guitar. He used to give me guitar lessons, and I used to pick up music very quick. I used to play music, what they call by ear, so I would listen and play. And he gave me his guitar, and my dad found it, and he took it away from me. And either he gave it back to him, and I think he gave it back to that guy. So that hurt me a lot, because I still have that passion in me today. Number two, I loved sports. I still do. And I used to play, I remember being in primary school, and I used to play football after school and hide. How? I would go play football. Before he comes to pick me up, I would go and brush my shoes and then turn my socks inside out so that he wouldn't see the dust.
He wouldn't see the dust from the shoes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And this was weird, considering that he used to be a sports captain. And I took up right after him. So that really got to me, because I was like, this is who I am. It's an expression of, who I was created to be. But having said that, I have to defend something, which I think at the same time we are kind of using as a clutch. Our fathers didn't know better. I looked at where they came from. My granddad, for example. My granddad, his father was hardly at home. My granddad was a vet. This is a generation where there were no matatus. They used to travel by train and bicycle. So just a trip to a major farm would take him 3 weeks, back and forth. Now, he went to a boarding school from primary school, from upper primary onwards. So, and actually one of the things that I later came to find out that really hurt my dad, because, my dad, one of his major flaws was he was a very angry man. And I found out from my mom just recently that when my granddad, his father, passed on, he was in school and they didn't tell him. And they buried him without him being present. Without him knowing. He came home to find a grave.
That must have been so sad.
That ate him for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And I now put myself in his shoes, and I can honestly say that he did the best that he could. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we also need to take into consideration is that who we are as men. Men are analytical, and we are factual. We want to do things that make sense. Mm-hmm. When you get a family, as we are all even doing right now, we've said, you're a parent, you're present, you're a provider. Mm-hmm. That takes up a huge chunk of our time. Mm-hmm. Now, in their generation, that was paramount. In fact, beyond anything else, provision was number one. Mm-hmm. And that applies for the world and applies to people in Christ. Provision was paramount. Actually, that's what defined you as a man. Mm-hmm. If you do not provide for your family, you're not a man.
You cannot call yourself a man.
No, you cannot. Mm-hmm. So having been that's the generation they grew up in. My dad used to try, whenever he used to go on a holiday, he was an engineer, he would come home, he would take us out, would spend time together. What he did not know how to do, and which now we have learned, and this has been a lesson, we didn't come naturally, we've learned to communicate to a point. Now we can communicate with our children, as you have as much as just alluded to, that you can sit down with your children. How was your day? How are you doing? Are you okay? Meaning I'm checking up on your emotional health. Uh-huh. They didn't know that. So how could he model what he did know?
What he did not know.
Yes. Uh-huh. So as much as, yes, we are suffering these wounds, we also need to understand that, yes, our fathers did the best that they could with what they had to work with. Mm-hmm. So it's up to us now to be more involved and learn as much as we possibly can, so that now we can also set up a good template for our biological and spiritual sons and the people that we are raising around us, mm-hmm. so that now they can have the best of both worlds, mm-hmm. that they can understand that, yes, there is this aspect of what is defined as being a man, and there's also the emotional aspect of it. So in essence, as as you rightly called us, as your uncles, we have a very big responsibility on our shoulders to be able now to mold the coming generation, and also to fix what was broken in us.
And I like that, the fact that you noticed there was a gap at that point that you had missed growing up, and that was communication, and you are trying to be able to build that currently. I like that, and we will get to, just seeing how we will be able to model and use some of these things as learning points to improve ourselves and make ourselves better, and even, mold other young men so that as they grow up and become fathers, they will not tread the same path. I really like that, David.
Wow. As I was growing up, my dad was absent. Physically, he slept in the house, but he's absent emotionally. So that guy you see, but you his
Have
face.
no connection
You have
with
no
that
connection.
person.
You have no connection.
Uh-huh.
And kept on looking, and which most children do, kept on looking for this to get his attention. And I remember for him, he used to say he was number one, so I tried to be number one.
All parents say they were number
all of them.
one.
I don't know who was number two in their class. But in seeking that attention, and I never got it. So one of the things that I grew up with, and later was angry, very angry, and had read violent books on how you can cut people with knives in ways that doctors cannot sort them out.
That's such a violent title.
I thank God I didn't become a murderer. I became very quiet, very introverted. I didn't have any form of esteem. We were laughing, and I kept saying, if you told me I would be doing this some years back, I would have told you, I don't know what you're smoking. It's too cheap. Change it.
You need to change your dealer.
Change what you're drinking. And it was to hide from this pain, this guy, and I was looking for that. I'll never forget, and I must share this one because one of those things you hope that goes away. And we did my KCP. This was KCP. And I went home and I had done very well. I was going to national school. And I expect the guy to say, well done, my son, well done. And I gave him my result slip and I was waiting for that. And then he looks at me and asks, Kwani, you're the only one who has passed. Years before you were born, that's the last night I slept in my parents' house. That
must have been very heartbreaking because you were expecting to get some sort of commendation.
We don't have
but
enough
you did not
tissues here.
receive it.
We don't have enough tissues here. We don't go back.
Oh.
And so what happened is then I avoided home. I was in every club in school. When I had to go home, really, I was even in the choir, by the way. I even had to go to my auntie's house after that. Never wanted. And it was years later, I look back and I was like, wait, there's something I'm carrying and I can't be what I'm supposed to be. And I had to come back and look at this. And I promised myself I'll not allow my children to go through the same thing. And so I had to go confront these things. Incidentally, I was able to let go of that pain and forgive him. And incidentally, I never thought we would ever have a relationship with him. And one of the things I tell people is important we deal with these things early enough is because by the time I was forgiving him, he had Alzheimer's dementia. And so he couldn't speak. But I was able to take care of him without feeling anger and stuff like that. And I promised myself what I went through, I'll not allow my children to go through. And one of the things I realized I never had with my dad was time. And not just physical, presence and emotional. Sitting with my son and my daughters and ask, how are you doing? How is everything? Preparing the girls, one day you'll be dating. And I realized, I'm almost like they will date a guy like me. I need to do certain things. It's how I carry myself, now how I speak. It's the things, doing those things. And you realize that over time, they're becoming confident in a way that I never thought I would at that time. From wearing black all the time to, she's very bright today. And seeing my children doing those things, I look at my son and some of the things he's doing and the girls, and I'm like, wow, okay, at 9 years old, you can light the gas and make an egg for yourself. And I couldn't do that at that age. And when my dad passed away, I thought, let me find out about his upbringing. And, just like, Anthony said, I was told, look, his dad was the freedom fighters. He was never home. So by the time independence was coming, he was in school and straight to work. He never had a father. So I'm expecting him to father me. He was never fathered. And I realized in the journey where most men are coming from, our fathers were coming from, they were never fathered. So they don't know how to father.
And they cannot give what they didn't receive.
They cannot give what they didn't receive. And for us now, who even didn't get it, now that God is showing us and healing us, can we then show others how to do the same? And that's the journey that we need to, because it's not just the children I have in my house. There are friends who have children, they're single moms, there are people who've lost, their children, their fathers. How do you work with them? The young people who are going to get married. If you don't show them this thing that you need to be present emotionally, physically, protect, that thing of nitambi daddy. And you think it looks like a joke. But that's why you see later, and I normally say this, look at anyone involved in corruption and look at anyone in the relationship with their dad. The money is to cope. You know, when you have cash, you feel secure. When you have cash, you think you have identity because, hey boss, nyaje? Yeah. But because they never let go of those things. But then when you get the place where you've healed, and you're walking with the children, you can see them becoming, you realize, yes, I can showcase that thing of God. And I normally use Mark 1:1. I mean, Jesus, before he started his ministry, God says, you know, Mark 1:11, this is my son, whom I love, in whom I'm more pleased. Many of us have never heard the word my son. You now had my daughter. And so you keep looking for this thing, and you are looking for someone to say, you, yeah, I love you, whom I love. Again, we say love is a Mzungu language, and I'm like, God is not white, neither was Jesus white. I mean, he's Jewish. But most of we want to feel that, be told that. And then our fathers never told, we expect them to tell us. And if you don't tell our children, guess what? Our sons will look for it from things. And that's why, you know, those days we used to club. When you go to the pub, there's a guy holding a booze, you know, pecking it, and you think it loves him. Because he's looking for that thing that he's never gotten. In whom I'm more pleased is basically, I'm proud of you. Now that's something that we never think about. It feels nice when I say, you have good, your hair looks nice.
Thank you.
It feels nice. It feels nice. You know, you have a good blazer. You know, it's awesome. You know, but we never think about it. If our fathers never say that, we keep looking for it. So I will do whatever needs to be done, whether make my 1-pack, 6-pack, steal money so that when you're walking, you know, when you're walking with an iPhone 12 or 13, hey, you are the guy. You know, hey, you are phone. And you're going, yeah. When it comes to an expensive watch, chronometer, guys go like, hey, boss, you know. And so we keep looking for these things even as adults, and we miss out on who is supposed to be. But if you're able to get that first from God, and I like what he said, because this God gives us that, then at times he brings other earthly fathers. If it doesn't, and you get it from him, you can transmit it to the others. And so you can bring young people your way, and you can love on them and walk with them and call them out, tell them you're great, you're good in this. It doesn't matter whether it's drawing, whether it doesn't matter what it is, because I think, I was looking for it in my academics. Now I'm looking back and I'm like, man, there are many things I missed, and I don't want my children to miss out, and I can be everything I'm meant to be. And so it's a journey.
It's a journey that we are constantly walking. And I like some of the things that you have said, and basically sharing your personal story too, and saying that at some point you were shut in and you became introverted. Now I want to probe further and just find out, you mentioned that you walk with other young men, and also you in your interactions in ministry and in coaching and in events, you know, and even as a father, you have probably seen some of the people my age, my generation, and some things that they do, and they probably manifest, but you in your wisdom, looking at it, you can be able to pick out that this is probably happening because in your childhood or growing up, you missed something that was essential for your growth, that you were to receive from your father that you didn't get. What are some of these manifestations of father wounds in young men and even in young women? Because like you mentioned, you said that girls subliminally want to look for somebody who's like their father, and say for somebody like me who probably wants to get married, but at some point I'm thinking, because my father was an absent father, I will probably look for a military man who is never at home, because I am so used to not having a man around in my home. So if this man is very present, I will feel suffocated and very choked. What are some of these manifestations in the lives of people about from missing fathers, say absent fathers, passive fathers, aggressive fathers?
A number of signs. Let me first, the coping mechanisms. One, passivity. They will not do anything. You can't do it. It's a coping mechanism. First, let me talk about it before the signs, coping mechanism. And there are guys who are in denial. It wasn't me, it never happened. Yeah, and so especially if there was wounds caused that the father was absent, there was a sexual attack and stuff, they would be in denial in that. And there's aggressiveness. The guys are doing that, and we kind of think that's normal, but it's a coping mechanism. Some of the signs you'll find: pride, anger, withdrawal, again passivity, anxiety are some of the signs. And so a lot of what gets hurt is the emotions. And you see some of these things, and we think, a bit what we were laughing earlier, you're thinking, because I'm quiet, I'm the nice guy, and I'm coping with that thing. Or some guy who comes, I'm the guy, and they're always loud and stuff like that. But yet deep down, they're hiding the pain that they are carrying.
So they've erected a certain wall and created a certain perception that you cannot permeate.
Exactly. Aggressiveness, like I said, and if you want to know how bad it is, just go on the roads the roundabouts, and you can tell and gets angry about anything and everything, including where's the grass green? And then what I call the curse of the generation, my generation behind us, especially, is passivity. Men who will not make a decision about anything. So you're almost hearing the ladies who are saying whether we are getting married next month. Okay, where? Yeah.
And they will not have any say in it.
They will not have any say in it. And because they will not make decisions, however, because they're dealing with the pains that they went through. So when you start seeing that, and we see that along people, some of it, even things like drugs. When someone comes in drugs and even alternative sex matters, go back. You discover something happened in their childhood. Maybe someone was attacked, but the father was never there to protect them. Someone molested them. It happened. A lot of guys who watched porn, some of us were victims to that. But we shouldn't have watched if our fathers were home, sitting with us, and those. But then Akuzo put in a video. Then you caught up in this thing. Drugs, again, they're looking for identities. When you go out there to the mtaani, and then you say, first, a guy who's called him Mzee, is a guy you look up to. Because ideally you should look up to your father, but this guy, and then he gives you this thing, then you think this is how it is. What happens? You get caught up in that. So a lot of the things we are seeing young men go through is a huge chunk of it. Is the things of fathers not playing their part, either being absent, abusive, controlling, passive, and they're looking for ways to cope. They're looking to get attention. They're looking to be told, well done. And so, that thing, I think we all partied when you've raved the whole night and guys are saying you're the guy, it feels nice. When you've drank the most alcohol, guys are like, you're the guy. And it feels nice. So tomorrow, what are you going to do? Take 2 bottles.
So you will look for affirmation everywhere else because you lacked it from the source.
Yes, acceptance, appreciation, affirmation. 3 things young people are looking for. An idea father should have given that, but they're trying to figure it in life.
Yeah. Anthony, what is your saying that?
Wow. That was deep. I'll give 2 practical examples that I have seen in this generation in both men and women. One of them is overachievement. Now,
I didn't think that people can overachieve. I just thought achievement is achievement. This is a new term.
Yes, overachievement is wanting beyond and above what you already have. And there's an and to it, doing anything
and everything
to attain it. That's the problem.